Welcome to a new episode of Manage to Retain, where I talk about issues around business for employees, your customers, recruiting, retention, productivity, and profitability. And I do it with my friends, Sherry and Lou. Listen in, you might get a few tips here on how to do leadership better in your business.
Profitability. I feel it's like in some conversations, it's a dirty word because all it means is I'm just trying to squeeze every dime out of everyone else that I can. But that's not the way I actually see it. Profitability is something that is a necessary component of running a good business. And I think we need to stop thinking of profitability as a negative thing or a good or a bad thing, so much as something that is required in order to be able to provide a good value as service. Sherry and Lou, you talk to lots of leaders all the time. Does this profitability kind of dilemma come up, that conflict of, I don't want to talk about profitability so much because it's about squeezing everything out of my people. Has that ever come up?
Oh, yeah. Well, of course it does, right? Because that's the bottom line. I mean, let's think about it. We can paraphrase it. We can sugarcoat it when we can use words like, oh, the bottom line, or we can use the words of KPI. It's profit. That's the bottom line. Is our company profiting in the direction we want to go according to our goals, our big, hairy, audacious goal, whatever we have in place? Are we doing this? And the challenge we face, though, and every leader faces,
is at what cost, right?
Is at what cost?
At what cost?
How can I relay this message, right? I'm getting this breathing down my neck. I'm responsible. I chose this role. How do I, in turn, make this profitability topic something that can be embraced? And we can talk a lot about that. I think that it all begins in the second part of that word, ability.
Interesting.
It's made up of two words there.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, it is profit and ability, right? So here's what I'd like to do today. I'd like to talk about this idea of profitability in the context of people. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring up some graphs, and I'll walk you through sort of the person that's on the graph here. But I want to look at it from a lens of profitability as to how that person feels and how they show up in that role every day. Because if I will tell you the days that I've had a discussion, a heated discussion with either my spouse or my kids, and I show up to work, that changes the way my day is. And if I'm having that kind of discussion every single day, it definitely changes the way I operate in my role, right? Yep. And I got to imagine there's some profitability that may suffer along with it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'd love to hear what you all see here.
Sure.
Okay, so I've got a employee on screen here, and what we've done is this is an employee experience assessment. So they answer some questions, and the idea is that right here in the center, any dots here, these blue dots, if they're in the center, that means they strongly disagree. On the outside, they strongly agree. So in the best case scenario, your employees are completely blue in this graph here, and they strongly agree about that these are all good things, that they've got meaningful work and they've got promotion options, and that there's not a lot of stress. Their opinion matters to coworkers. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about this in terms of profitability. I mean, we've got an employee here where we can see that the growth in their tasks is pretty low. We can see that their opinion doesn't matter to their coworkers. Do you think that affects profitability for that company?
Yeah, and they're this particular person's not a real fan of how they're paid either, right? The well-paid piece there. Well, going back to, and I'm curious to see what you all feel about this, but the word, again, going back to that, separating the word profit and ability out, profitability, and asking as a leader, when we look at this data, does this person have profit ability? Right. And that's the big question here. And it's not that they're the ones that are at fault necessarily, but do they have, based on this profit ability? Well, what does ability mean? The potential to achieve a set of accomplishments, right? But how do we get that set of skills? Well, we've got to be trained, right? We don't, those that are skilled bricklayers that can build a building and lay brick and stone. They're not born with that ability. They have, it's a learned skill. Profitability is a learned skill.
And that's where the gap is, because people are not equipping. And we wonder why there's these symptoms of disengagement, why I don't want to be here, why am I finding another job? So that really has a lot to do with that.
Yeah. So how can we make this help this person become give them profitability? And well, we now know the conversations and what to look for based on this information with this particular person.
So if this person doesn't feel like they're well paid, they don't feel like their opinion matters to their coworkers, they don't feel like there's any growth in their tasks, they kind of, it sounds to me like they're slightly checked out here, if not completely checked out here. Are we putting them in do you want somebody who's checked out to be trying to sell your product or run a division or a unit for you? Probably not, because that's not where their head, their focus is not on you anymore. It is about themselves, because that's probably where they're going to start looking for another job.
That's right.
Right.
So let's take a look at someone else and see what here's somebody else.
Another word comes up too is potential. Are they working on their, as a leader, you should be looking at this, or manager role, whatever. If you're overseeing these folks that we're looking at, are these folks at their full potential? We should start digging into that, which leads to equipping, right? It leads to finding these gaps and to make sure that they are in the right position.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we want people in roles that they actually have that ability to turn it into profit, right?
There you go.
So here's another person. Overall score is 5. Nothing that's really in the red here. I mean, their lowest score is a 4, right? So compared to the average in this case, they're actually doing pretty well. I mean, their ability to interest in finding a new job and their growth in tasks is slightly higher than the average, but they don't have as much promotion option, and they don't find their work as meaningful. But I would say, generally speaking, it seems like this person is, kind of the river's flowing and they're floating down the river with it.
You're right. They're doing the average, right? And that's basically it. And they have an average score. So they're doing what's necessary, maybe a little bit higher in some level. They're basically doing what's necessary to do their job. Most likely, this is an employee that, from our perspective, or as a leader perspective, if we're not looking at this graph, says I want every employee to be like them. They come in, they do their job, they do it well. And that's exactly what I want from them. So we want them to be the model, right? But then we look at this graph. Do you really want them to be the model? Well, it really depends on our perspective. Again, profitability. This person, at some point, either is, because we haven't really dug deep, is already talking about how meaningless their job is. I come in and I clock in because I have to pay bills. It's decent pay, so I'm good there. And I don't mind what I'm doing because it's not boring. Whatever I'm doing is challenging enough. And I love my coworkers. We get along real well. So they're probably a high I on the DISC scale. So they're really involved and emotionally charged and love people. But they don't see the big picture. So do we really want that person to be the model? Or how can we get that person to really increase profit margin? Because right now they're just doing what's average, what's necessary.
Someone told me once that where you pay attention is where you get results. If the results that I want is profitability, is this person paying attention to it? I don't get the sense that they are. And if this person is pretty close to your average, then your average person is not paying attention to what you care about.
That's right. Or we're not relaying that information. Because when it comes down to it, as a leader, the power kind of comes, we're the ones that it starts with. It starts at the top. And that's just where it begins. And so whatever message is non-relayed, it's our responsibility to relay the message properly so that we do provide them that ability to knock out that bottom line goal.
Yeah. I'm going to look at one. Let's look at one more here and just find out a completely different person here. Interesting, right? Overall score is a 4 here. Gosh, and they have lots of areas that, you know, they don't believe they're well paid. They don't believe their opinion matters to their boss. They don't feel like they have meaningful work. They have high stress, and they have work that they don't think is very challenging. So this person is struggling at this job, which is interesting because their opinion matters to their coworkers. So they probably show up to work because they like the people they work with. They believe that there's promotion option, as in maybe the company's growing fast or something like that, and they see that there's, maybe I'll get there. And they're kind of looking for a job. Maybe they're just in a place in their life where I'm not, if something comes along, but I'm too comfortable right here. And they believe that there's an opportunity to grow in their task. This person is a lesson in contrast right here.
Big time.
And
if I am not a betting man, but if I was a betting man, I would bet that this score was based upon a different supervisor, or a different leader. Either that or these two don't get along. This is a person that will come in, does mediocre work, loves to talk to and be around the people he works with. Doesn't have much things nice to say about the company or his supervisor. And you've probably already had multiple conversations with this person about their attitude. And I will venture to say they're one of two things. They're either in the wrong position or they're not a fit for the company. But we're not going to know that unless we really dig deeper here to find out why, because it very well could start, again, holistically. It could very well begin starting at the leadership, management, supervisor level. That very well may be where the challenge is. If you as a supervisor have a lot of people that develop this type of a graph, I'd venture to say that it begins there.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, if you want to talk about someone who might be a cancer in a company, I think this person might be it, right?
Right.
Now, so there's two. I mean, the question is why you give them the space to either opt themselves out or opt back in. Don't keep this. I mean, this is that employee that for the longest time you've known that I don't want that. So now you can take data, start to see that this is actually what is happening for them, and go to them and say, do you want to be here?
Right.
And when they say yes, you say, why? Why do you want to be?
Having that conversation, that's big. Having that conversation is really important. And again, it goes down to that word, profitability. Sometimes that's reversal, right? Profitability means we need to make a change with this employee to allow and give us the ability to profit. So it's all related. Okay. So looking at it from that perspective, what do we need to do to develop and create that ability to profit, to hit that bottom line, but make sure that our people, our employees, those that we lead are engaged. And not to say that they have to be engaged all the way around, or not going to, everyone just loves everything, that their blue is all the way on the outside, and everyone that's not what we want. We want diversity. We want that type of environment. But again, it's that ability. Yeah. If we want profit, are we set up with that ability?
Well, I want to stop sharing here because I think we found a person here that is definitely not adding to your profitability.
No.
Principles. You have the 10 principles that you all use. Give me a principle or two that you think applies here in terms of seeing what's happening with your people and being able to use that to be more effective as a leader.
Yeah, it's there's going to be two that I like to correlate here that we don't talk about a lot. We haven't talked about a lot in our series. And again, this is coming from the 10 principles that every leader must follow to lead with influence. It's our empowerment principles that Sherry and I have developed through our experience. One of those is the power principle. And what we say with the power principle is your thoughts define your actions. Again, we're relating this to being a leader. So, and the challenge is when we reach a certain level, we've got to be real careful with the power that we have. And when it comes down to profitability, remember, we're responsible to making the decisions for our employees, knowing what we know from the top down. So it's imperative that we be careful on how power is used. that it can be used and we can use it in two ways, right? One for the benefit of others, one for the demise of others. I mean, we look at some of the powerful leaders in our history, we can see polar opposites of how that can be used and effective. So we need to examine what truly is how we influence those around us. That last example of that employee was a great example of there's obviously some type of influence that's not being used effectively in some fashion. So the power principle is definitely number one. And I think you had mentioned before about the equipping principle.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right,
that
yeah.
also applies very, very well here on what we're doing to equip them
Mhm.
to have that ability to be profitable.
Well, I appreciate you taking a couple moments. Clearly, in my mind, understanding how you people are showing up every day to their job and how they're showing up in their roles, how they feel about what's happening to them, makes a big difference. Because if they're not feeling very good, they're not focused on doing what you need either. They're probably just focused on themselves at that point in time.
Right.
So,
Right.
something to consider as you try to be more effective as a leader. Thanks for sharing, Lou.
You bet. Thanks for